Hey guys, NovelistCrim here, and if you're watching this and this has been divided into, two parts, it's because we had technical difficulties in the middle, and I needed to, switch internets in order to make sure that it was working properly. So, aside from that, I think we should be more in the clear now, and I'm hoping that it all stays in one piece. So, this could be part 2. Sorry. Alright, if you guys are interested in seeing that journal entry, you can go ahead and check it out on the Discord by hitting !Discord. It'll get you a link there, and that's no problem. So, let's have a little bit of a discussion here on what we were chatting about. Also, this thing is being really wonky, man. My computer's like doing all sorts of weird acrobatics here. I don't know what's going on. Alright, let's see. So, like, one of the things that I kind of noticed that's strange is that recently, with like Dungeons and Dragons, I run a game every other Saturday, and I'm the dungeon master for that. So that means that I have to like put together the characters that you guys face, the enemies, the environment, all things that happen. Basically, I am the interface to that world. The sessions usually last about like anywhere between like 3 to 4 hours, depending. But recently I noticed that when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, I don't spend too much time on it. And that's mostly because I want to spend more time on writing. I love the the grind of like getting the novel done. I love being able to like sit there and edit, to work on the drafts or trying to solve problems. It's a lot of fun for me. And I think one of the things that's surprising, though, is that the content for noveling is much slower than the content for Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I think with Dungeons and Dragons, I only literally spend about maybe like a day and a half, like working on whatever material I need in order to run that 3-hour session. And I find it kind of interesting that you're able to consistently hit the deadline. Like every 2 weeks that passes by, like I'll always have something to like adventure with. And I think part of that is an understanding of improvisation, and another part of that is a concept of, I guess, just like kind of trusting your story sense, really. Of kind of like understanding the ebb and flow of story and knowing when you should and should not do things. So I think it's kind of cool that we are able to hit those deadlines, and I kind of like wonder why. I think I understand it's because like if I didn't have something to look at by each of those Saturdays, I would probably look like a real dum-dum. Essentially, it would not be great, because I'm going to be wasting a bunch of my friends time, and I have to be sitting there embarrassed, me, a person who calls himself a storyteller, unable to come up with a story for once every 2 weeks, something that's like small and manageable. So I like the challenge of doing D&D. I think it's a great way to flex your creative muscles, and also it helps teach a discipline of making those deadlines. It's kind of cool. I also have another type of deadline that I've been working with, which is essentially every 2 weeks I have a writers group meeting, and usually with this critique group, they come back with some feedback, some information about the story. They read the novel and let me know how it's doing. I think that's partly why I'm able to like hit these deadlines for getting a chapter done every 2 weeks, because like again, falls back to the same concept of Dungeons and Dragons. or I don't want to look silly. I feel like I'm wondering if like 2 weeks is like the magic thing, that you need like, 2 weeks to like, defragment your brain and maybe consume enough content, or, live life long enough to come up with a brand new, fresh perspective and a brand new idea in order to make something interesting. I don't know. And personally, I really wish that it would be cut down to 1 week. I don't know if that's something that'll ruin the flow. I don't know if it's something that like will add unneeded pressure. Would it ruin the creative flow? Not sure. Would be nice though. If I could get a chapter done like, one every week, I'd be in so much better straits. I'm really hoping that I can finish this novel by, well, I'm about to turn 30, and I'm really hoping that that I can finish up the book before I turn 31. That's the goal. You're used to a 2-week deadline. That's your advantage. Your mind is used to 2 weeks, right? Yeah, I think that's basically what I've kind of trained myself in. Like every 2 weeks I come up with something, and I think that's kind of cool. I feel like that's a decent workflow, at least in terms of like trying to come up with material. Because on the first day when I get a chapter, usually I spend that day to either brainstorm, or I fill up the page with just nonsense. Like I'll do a rough draft and I'll just like blast out whatever I'm thinking, like, let your mind relax, go into a sort of like mind picture state, and then as like the images start to flow, you just write down as fast as you can whatever you see, any idea or emotions that you feel or things that you want to do. You just start like kind of going into that fever heat and just like following the narrative wherever it goes, and you'll find that sometimes there's some kind of cool thing buried in that rubble that you created, just like blah. But there's always like something interesting in there. There's something that can spark another idea, which leads to another idea. So I think in terms of like my journey of trying to like get chapter 10 done, on Wednesday I started doing a rough draft, just kind of like writing whatever I felt, and I came up with a pile of garbage. But I did find a couple ideas that I really enjoyed. And while I'm sitting here humming and hawing and thinking about like what I could do with that, I had a buddy of mine I was talking to, and he gave me an entirely new perspective. I think that's one of the cool things too. If you have like people you can talk to, friends and stuff, it's nice to work with others, ask for opinions and thoughts, and sometimes you'd be surprised as to like what kind of ideas they would pop up with. In fact, one of my buddies actually came up with the solution to the problem I've been having, which is essentially the main character being a little bit useless at this moment, since he's still in the first act, kind of leaving it behind, and he has no useful powers that are particularly great for combat. I mean, he does have magic that he can use, but nothing like in the way of like combat. So I was trying to think like, well, maybe I can take the perspective of like, the sorceress or something like that, and try to like, switch things up. So we're opening our mind a little bit, talking through the process of like problem solving. What's called? Because working in small groups has helped me improve my workflow when it comes to engines and working on cars. That's awesome. I wonder what that's like though. Like, do you have like a mental checklist that you go through when you're working on cars? Like, how does that work? Like, I know next to nothing about cars. But it's kind of cool to see like, the skills of someone else who's like, a mechanic. I think that's awesome. It's like such a useful skill. Also, here's a question, and I know it's going to sound silly, but do you guys work on electric cars as well? Or does that like out of the realm of mechanics? Like, how does that work? Because I never really researched anything about how the electrical car industry works. But to let's see here. Small community is great. Help fix each other's issues. Cars have a diagram. Ooh, nice. Also, you like follow those diagrams through. That's kind of a cool idea. It'd be nice if like writing had a lot more flow diagrams or something in order to help like repair its engine. I feel like a novel is like an engine to me. And because it's like, you know, you have like your, you know, your scene, your goals and stuff, and then it leads into like a sequel, which is a reaction, and it kind of just like, you know, pumps like a heartbeat until the story ends, you know, when you run out of fuel. Let's see here. Yeah, definitely having people with you is a good way to like kind of like expand yourself. So like, yeah, going into the thought process of like problem solving for this novel, I was trying to decide like whether or not, you know, like how to like open your mind and like, you know, attack things from like different angles. Because if it's like, if one way is not working and you're not entirely certain about it, and you're thinking like other things that are possible, why not give those possibilities a shot? See what happens. I am a strong believer that there really isn't any like wasted time when it comes to writing. Like if you want to discover something and try something out, like part of being a writer is like you know, writing. And I guess part of being a storyteller is finding the bits of the story that you need. So combining the two, kind of useful, you know. Cool. Let's see here. Electric cars are more dangerous in the sense that of death via electrical shock. Wow, if you're not familiar with them. Regular cars just disconnect the battery. Wow. I had no idea. And that does sound incredibly spooky. Have you ever gotten your hands on like a Tesla or something? Actually, have you ever even driven like an electrical car? I'm kind of like curious to know like how that feels. I assume it's like kind of zoomy, you know? In the sense that you know, it's quiet, it picks up momentum, it moves real fast. Let's see. Trying to think if there's any other topics that we can talk about before I get back into like the writing thing. I just go in faster race cars that run on gas. There's probably something nostalgic about gas too, I would assume. You know? Then the roar and sound of it is pretty awesome. It's like part of the fun, you know? I feel like if I were to be like a real like a person who was like super into cars and like comparing an electric car, I feel like it wouldn't be the same, you know, because that whole like experience of like having the gas, the sounds and everything else, you know, and I guess like the mechanic-y vibe of just like working with this type of technology, I could feel that, you know. I could feel that there would be a difference, like a big difference. It's almost like having like a firework like shoot up into the sky but not make a boom. Now you get the pretty lights and stuff like that, but where's that boom, you know? That's kind of like what it would feel like, I think. It's almost like losing one of your senses. And again, if just going fast is your thing, maybe. But I would assume that there's like probably like some kind of like intimate feeling with just the way the machine works. I could see that. It says, they are not, but cars have more torque than gas cars. Yeah. I assume that means they can, like, probably kick off real quick. That's pretty sick. So, like, here's a question for you, Adler. If we started making, like, starships, right, like a common thing, about how quickly would you abandon the car industry and go into starship industry? Like, how long would it, like, you know, how long would it take you to make the decision of, like, yeah, no, I'm just gonna educate myself on that one and just do this forever. Racing starships must be awesome. I feel like, well, I mean, it depends, because it's like, you would have to, thinking from that perspective, it'd be a lot more zoomy. There's a lot less things in the way, which is pretty baller. But it would be like, it would probably equate to mostly drag racing to see if you can get to like a certain spot. Or if you're really ballsy, maybe you'll have to like go through the asteroid field, you know? Race through there. That'd be cool. Maybe there's like some kind of track or something like that. I'm babbling. Alrighty. Also, if you guys have any other questions or just want to chat, let me know. I'd be more than happy to talk to you. And also, if as well, if you guys like need help or something like that, or you know want to like just shoot the shit or bounce, like you need like a person to bounce ideas off of, let me know. We could probably like suss something out. Alrighty. Another question I received earlier today, by the way. Oh, before we get going. Let's see here. I've been learning so much new stuff on space recently. Yes. Yes. I love space. I really do. When I was a kid, I always wanted to be like one of two things. Either a space pilot or a guy who worked on Gundams specifically. I loved Gundams. They were really cool growing up. It's like humanoid robots for the uninformed. But they were pretty dope. And I really wanted one. Because they're cool. Yeah, I'd love to do that. That'd be such an awesome job. My God. It's like working on starships and like, you know, being able to be freaking free, man. Free as a bird. All you had to do is just pay for the airship or the, you know, the spaceship, and then, you know, basically everywhere is friggin' free real estate, man. You just like fly wherever you want and stop wherever you want, sleep. It's a good time. All you need is like food sources and such. Really good time. I feel like we're gonna probably have a lot of that in the future. Like a lot of like space hangouts and such. I really hope so. Things start to pick up, you know. That's interesting. Oh, there we go. Before we get entirely started, there's one more thing I'd like to talk about, and that's dialogue. I had a question about dialogue recently, and I feel like I could probably lend a little bit of information on that. I won't go too into detail since we've already talked a lot about other stuff. Um, so I had a question about dialogue. My buddy was, wondering if it's, his dialogue sounded good, if it was like, boring or whatever. I think my standard general advice, like if you want the basic advice, I would probably say, if you're doing like dialogue, try to keep the sentences to about 5 words, if you can. Roughly 5 words, unless you're explaining something. If a character's explaining something, then, that's fine. But generally about like 5 words. And I take this concept from like Jim Butcher, who's like one of my favorite writers. And he kind of like does this whole like ping pong method of just like, trying to do as much, like any sentence that you can, do like 5 words. And he made a joke when somebody got on stage and basically said, well, but nobody talks like that, 5 words. So yeah, it's possible. Certainly doable. I like to keep things short and punchy. One of my recommendations is to read your text. Reading your stuff out loud is probably the most critical thing I could recommend as a writer. And that's mostly because you will notice flow issues from your own text. If you find yourself running out of air, if you find yourself tripping over words, if you find yourself kind of like wincing and almost feeling like this doesn't feel human, chances are it doesn't. So when you're going through your text, be it narrative or dialogue, I highly recommend that you read your stuff out loud, because you'll start to notice things like flow. You'll start to notice things like pacing with your narrative. Sometimes people have like a tendency to be really attracted to a certain type of sentence. Me personally, I like the 2-hit sentence, like when there's like one comma in the middle. It's like blah blah blah, but blah blah blah, blah 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 and blah blah blah. It's almost like a punchline way of talking. But yeah, if you notice like the lines of like text that you're coming up with, if you have like too many like 2 1 comma sentences where it's like blah 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 comma blah blah blah, and you just keep doing that over and over and over and over again, your sound is going to, like when you read out the story out loud, it's going to sound extremely droning, and it comes off like that when you're like reading it as well. So I think one of the other things to keep in mind, and now we're diving into the narrative, one of the things that we got to keep in mind also is doing the kind of like mixing up the like the sentence variation a little bit. Like try to describe things with like 3 commas or 2 commas or 1 comma short at the beginning. This type of variation will not only like break up the droning monotony, but also will give you like a sense of it'll kind of give you like a challenge, so you're almost like forced to come up with a different description or try to describe things in different ways, and you'll notice that it kind of like adds a little salsa to your flow. At least it does for mine. Like, that's just like food for thought if you guys are interested in any of that. Other than that, but yeah, like rolling back to the dialogue thing before we're like all done here. When it comes to like dialogue, you want to make sure that it's believable. Really honestly ask yourself, is this something that they would say? Is this something that normal people would say? Are they stating the obvious, or are they trying to like shoehorn like a ham-fisted attempt at like exposition? I would say it's like probably no problem there, Arthur. I think it's probably better to like stick towards what is most believable and what's human, right? There's always an opportunity to like put like expository information into a story, but like making sure that you don't want to break the believability of the world. You don't want to like you don't want the reader to be like ugh, or roll their eyes, or just like be taken away from the story, because that's like the worst. So making sure that your dialogue has a point, it's working up towards something, it's moving the story along. Definitely try to avoid small talk unless it's done for like, I guess, some kind of purpose like comedic value or something like that. But yeah, make sure that the dialogue is a point. Keep it short and punchy, um, and make it believable. That's pretty much my take. So hopefully those those little concepts works for you guys. All right, let's see here. Man, I wish I heard this back in college. I struggled with dialogue. Yeah. So do you actually do writing as well there, Adler? Or do you happen to do like any like RPs or anything like that? I did, but stopped. Constant writer's block. Oh no. You should try again, man. You should. I bet you have like a bunch of wonderful ideas in there, dude. You really should. Writer's block is like annoying as hell, for sure. But I honestly believe that like a lot of like what comes from writer's block, and I guess we're gonna dive back into another writing topic. A lot of like what comes with writer's block for me is if I'm trying to shoehorn something that doesn't work, right? I find that most times when I'm stuck on something, I usually have to go 10 lines back. And this is assuming that like you actually have a narrative that you're working on. Like you had an idea, you had a premise, you were starting to write something, and then like you couldn't get past a certain point, right? Actually, how about we take a more surgical approach to this? About what point in the story did you feel like you were having writer's block at? And then maybe we can like talk about that. That way I don't waste your time, you know? See, like, here's a bit of like an example, right? For before I answer your question there, Adler, or like continue the discussion. Here's an example of like believability, right? So in this scene here, I'm writing a character. Like my main character is afraid of this other person, right? Who is an older man, a very powerful sorcerer, and he's evil, you know. But he's not evil in the way that like, you know, I'm going to twiddle my mustache and like, you know, just kind of laugh maniacally. He's evil in the way that he's like very powerful, very sadistic, but he approaches and speaks to you with a grandfatherly smile, and he's like warm and always friendly, you know, before he kills you. So like in this in these two sentences that I wrote, it says here, Kalen's blood froze at the sight of Mr. Quinn. His smile was easy and warm, like a grandfather he never knew. Now, good flow, but problem. I feel like the first sentence kind of like contrasts the second, right? So it's like his smile is easy and warm, like the grandfather he never knew. So we have like two different ideas, like, you know, competing with each other. One is fear, and then another one is like pretty good, nice times or whatever. Now, there's nothing wrong with making that comparison. However, doing it the way I did alone doesn't work. because it's like, you know, you have bad feeling with good feeling. Instead, it should be bad feeling, and it, you know, kind of like mention that despite him wearing that type of like, you know, expression, you know, Kalen can feel this sort of like thing. You know, he has that type of response. So immediately I know that, like, all right, so this sentence here is not going to work. There's something wrong with it. And I'll probably figure that one out later. Anywho, so let's take a look here. So at the beginning, I had an idea, but as I tried to develop it, I ran into a wall of where and how. And it's funny because I've been dreaming about it for the past few nights in my head too. So like where and how? So you're trying to like find a setting for your world, or the idea that you have? Do you have like a character in mind, and as well as a plot? Usually my suggestion is, what are you obsessed with? What excites you, you know? If there's something that you can like write all day about, you know, take little pieces of those concepts, like, you know, if you like cars and space a lot, and if you like, you know, all these other things, see if you can, you know, take those little seeds and then, you know, can we weave them together? Are there any similarities here? Can I make a similarity? Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be like, you know, 100% makes sense, but, you know, play with it. Maybe it could be like, you know, like a pod racing type of deal. Like, you know, just like famous pod racers going from, you know, planet to planet, owning aliens in racing. I don't know. Let's see, setting a more plot. I think I'm gonna kind of start plotting some crap down now. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think there's a couple of main, like, you know, for me, the main portions of a story that that I like to have before like going in. I definitely like to have my, you know, I need my protagonist, which is the person who's going to be like, you know, the character that has the most screen time. Usually the character who has the most to lose and the most to learn. So that's the guy that I pick. And then the antagonist, which is, there you go. Booyah. Nice. Glad to help, man. So you need a protagonist, antagonist. You need a beginning thing, like something to kind of like push your character into the new world of, you know, being in this type of situations, like, you know, whatever is the meat and fun of the story. You'll need a midpoint twist, something, you know, interesting to look forward to, a game changer. It could be a love interest. It could be, you know, maybe a character death. It could be getting the thing that they want, but discovering that it sucks. One of the things. And finally, you need a, like, some kind of, what do you call that? Like a crisis point. Something that's like, you know, the climax, the big problem, the things that, you know, the big build up toward the, like, you know, something exciting and crazy. So that's essentially like the parts and pieces I like to start off with. And then you can probably go into deeper work from there, but I'd say, you know, start thinking about those things. You know, whatever ideas that you have in your head, write them down. Get as many pieces as you can, and then just start like saying, okay, so here's my ingredients, here's the things that I would like to do, and then we can slowly bring order to it and march it forward. It's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. As for what I've learned from the videos I've been watching, sometimes the person you hate the most is the only person that understands you enough to go right now. Wow, that makes sense. I feel like it's like such a true duality between like the villain and the, you know, the hero. I notice that a lot because it's like sometimes I feel like the villain is almost like a dark mirror of what the main character could be, you know? Like one of the I guess flaws or traits of like the character. It's like this is what you could be if you had like, you know, power or you were evil and you just like threw ethics out the window. If you keep believing the way you believe and then you just like, you know, said screw the world, this is what you would become. That representation of like, you know, I don't know, I think that's kind of a cool way of doing it, you know. It's like take the flaw and then like have it so that they went on the dark path, but it's like believable, you know, that they would have ended up that way. It's cool. Google search. Did you mean Professor X and Magneto? Yeah, that's a good way to do it. That's a certainly great comparison. Totally forgot about that. But yeah, very fair point. Exactly. That's exactly it. I gotta remember that. Thank you. That's a great comparison to make. Alrighty. So I'm hoping you guys are liking this like new format that we've been doing. I'm really enjoying like being able to like have more like I'm trying to like lean towards a concept of like giving you guys something that's like I guess worthy of content, you know what I mean? Like I really like the idea of like being able to like provide a service to you in some way or another. So having to be able to sit down and like do these you know, the journal entry at the beginning and then also like a little bit of writing discussion about anything that comes across my head or anything that we'd like to talk about. I feel like that could be like a cool fun thing to do, and we've been trying to like keep this new pace and new I guess like style of running the show a little bit like, you know, different, just adding more to it. So I'm hoping you guys are enjoying that. I think it's kind of fun. It's a neat way of engaging the peoples. If you guys like this sort of content, I recommend you leave a follow if you haven't. It really helps me out. You should also check out our YouTube, because if there's any wisdom that you liked here and you kind of want to like go back and hear it, but you don't want to go check through the whole video, I recommend you check out the YouTube, because we'll be capturing those highlights and putting them up for you guys to like just have easy access to, and it'll be like pretty quick. Aside from that, if you guys are new here, again, my name is NovelistCrim. This is, you know, writing company and motivation. We usually host this stream from Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. And we also have a Discord if you haven't tried it already. It's a lot of fun. Any of the journal entries that I start off with during the beginning of the stream, you can find that on the Discord in the journal tab. That way you can like read it if you'd like. You can also you know, rub shoulders with other creatives and get notifications as to when we're actually live and such, or any other type of notifications that are going on. But yeah, you just hit ! Discord and chat, and it'll get you a link right there. Aside from that, I think we have like a lot of fun. We did a little bit of work on Chapter 10's intro, and I think that there was like a big holdback, a writer's block, if you say, if you will. And it's mostly because like the beginning sentence just didn't work for me. So I kind of like figured, all right, cool, let's try it another different way. I think it's always like important to keep your mind open to different opportunities. If one way doesn't work, you know, always look a couple lines back and see if you can address things from a different angle and think outside the box. There's always a solution, and you'll find it, for sure. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate the following that we've been getting. I noticed that like our numbers are going up. It is growing, which is very promising. And I appreciate the participation in our chats. Like having you guys like respond and in the chat not only makes the content better, but it also makes the you know, my time here better, because I get to talk to you. And also we get to like you know, kind of discuss like the fun things in life, and I feel like I'm not living under a rock and be able to like you know, interact with all the cool new things that are going down. So it's kind of like my version of a town square, learning more and more, so being social and having fun, and I appreciate you for it. So we're gonna be doing a quick raid for let's see here, let's do another writer. Let's do Strawberry Bell, see if they can use some love. Be sure to throw down some big brains, you know, show them some love. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Take it easy, guys. And as always, stay passionate.